Hello and welcome to a new video. So I had a really good reception on my tier list video. It is funny because I think even though it did, arguably the worst out of all the metrics and whatnot, the sheer amount of people that enjoyed it, I would argue is probably like a lot higher. If we create a fake number, let's say like an enjoyment factor or something, just to demonstrate my point, let's say 50,000 people watched one video, but they only enjoyed it up to maybe a 7 out of 10 experience. I would argue that a video that has maybe half the views, 25,000 views, but everyone felt like it was a 10 out of 10, you can kind of do the math there. Yeah, maybe it doesn't size up as much, but the point still stands that it was a 10 out of 10 experience. So for those that bothered to tell me, I appreciate that. I didn't actually expect a lot of people to care that much, I suppose. It also did get posted on the subreddit, and a lot of people had differing opinions. They didn't agree with things, but I think they maybe just didn't actually listen to the video. They kind of they kind of saw like the tier, and there was a comment addressing the fact that one of the first things I said in the tier list video was to address the fact that without nuance, a lot of these things don't really, they don't really make sense. So hopefully this kind of video, it's not necessarily a tier list. I might title it a tier list to get you to click, but I want you to not feel indignant when I tell you that it's not necessarily a tier list, because I'm going to explain to you why it's not really good to do that. One, if I create a tier list, I have to accommodate 172 champions. And so someone actually said, why doesn't he just make a tier list for every champion and every augment? So that's 172 times a potential 167. Let's just say even 100. I'm sorry, I'm going to be addressing 17,200 things. No, not going to happen. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to try and talk about every item here and talk about maybe, I'm going to be as objective as possible, okay, as possible as doing the heavy lifting, as in I'm going to address like the numbers, the power level, like the literal numbers available. So for example, I use the same example in the past, 70 AP versus 50 AP. Objectively speaking, 70 AP is higher than 50. Does that mean that the 70 AP item is objectively better than the 50? Well, if those were the only two stats, then arguably yes. But even then, we'd have to go back to first principles and say, well, if the goal is to get more AP, then yes, it would have to be 70. If the goal is to get less AP, then I guess 50 is objectively better, right? So we're going to try to align, I'm going to try to align us with our goals and our definitions, etc. That way we can fucking evaluate these things without people going, oh, but there's no nuance, because I'm trying to give you the nuance, okay? So, sorry, one sec. I'm not editing this, so even like little breaks like that, if you're wondering, if you're like putting me on second wonder, if there's ever like a moment where I'm not saying anything, it's because I'm coughing and I'm muting the mic. So, Black Hole Gauntlet. This one's fun. I'm gonna try to get it on screen. I wish I had a better way of doing this without editing. And also, if I were to edit like the actual card, it would not actually be that good, simply because you don't get the small details like this. So Black Hole Gauntlet, if you don't know what it is, it's essentially a tank item, and the way it works is you have. We'll start with a passive. Anytime you on hit or immobilize, you could also just read on screen, by the way. You gain size. So size. Ah, dude, this is really important for people to understand. Size is like, once I have to cough. Size is actually like really bad. Okay, so here's why size is bad. Barring a few champions that actually either don't care or make use of it, as in neutral or positive, size is generally extremely bad. And the reason why is because your hitbox is being bigger benefits opponents that want to hit you more than it would benefit you to, I don't know, have some sort of psychological effect on them, like, oh dude, or maybe even auto attack range. So Cho'Gath is an example of this auto attack range scaling with size. It goes from, I believe, like 125 to like 230, something like that, and that can make a difference. But even in a case where it makes a difference for him, like positively, you could definitely argue that the ability for a player to just throw an ability generally in their direction and hit, that's just way worse. I'm not even going to go into like center to center and edge to edge hitbox thingies. Basically, in general, size is not a good stat, especially if you're a champion that doesn't use any of it. If you're like a Jinx, for example, and you want to be mobile, and you want to be able to right click somewhere and then have your hitbox effectively move elsewhere, and that way you can like dodge a skill shot. like you don't want size. You just it looks funny. It looks funny, right? But barring fun purposes or silly purposes, we have to agree. And if we don't agree, this is going to be very difficult. That size is generally bad for pretty much everyone. Okay, and conversely, lower size is actually very fucking good for everyone. That's why the new movement speed rune and the lower size is so fucking good. Like you if you stack lower size together, your hitbox becomes so tiny you can just dodge all the time, So movement speed and size are pretty closely correlated. They're essentially working through the same thing, which is your hitbox, right? How quickly it moves and how big it is. So let's establish that. You don't actually want the size. It is funny though. So already that's kind of a negative. But the rest of this item is actually very, very disgusting. So you get your size and you on hit and immobilizing, and you also get base health regen. Now, base health regen, unfortunately, is not actually that good either. Regen in general in this game, unless it's like absolutely nuclear, like a I don't know, like a Garen, a Set, a Mundo, it typically will not overcome the sheer amount of power that exists. So for example, if we got 10% up to 500% base health regen, depending on the character that you're playing, of course, I think Set with his passive is kind of cheating. I think Riven has one of the highest, something like that. In Summoner's Rift, this would be amazing. But in the context of Arena, this basically means nothing, okay? So ignore all that shit, ignore that passive stuff. It's just funny for tanks. It's cool for tanks, right? It's just, it's nice. The active is what you actually want to be paying attention to, because this used to be based off of armor MR, and now it's based off health. The fact that you can get up to maybe 500, 600, maybe upwards of 1,000 damage with Black Hole Gauntlet, got a cough, per second in the middle and have it scale, like, already that's really strong. And this is the reason why I will actually take this item on champions that it might not make sense to take it on. Even like ADCs, enchanters, you can very much justify it. Like ADC is the reason why I'm going to say that you might not want it on out of everyone, even though I think everyone wants it, is because ability haste typically doesn't matter that much for ADCs unless you're doing mosquito builds, right? If you're doing like caster builds, then you're not an ADC at that point, right? You're like a glorified AD mage. And health typically doesn't really do anything for you other than make you tanky. But I will make the case that in Arena, any sort of amount of health or defensive stat that you can get at all is just generally going to be worth it. Because the stats are jacked up, and because there's so many different sources of tankiness that you can get, whether it's stat invulns or like random stats from items, or even just itemizing a single defensive to work in tandem with higher base HP and random items like Black Hole Gauntlet, being possible to get. Like in general, the fact that you can access tanky stats without having it be a huge detriment to your build, to me, makes it incredibly powerful. So again, this is not a tier list, but if this were a tier list, this would be a very, very easy like S or A, like 100% at least A, and maybe even S tier. So one of my argumentation tactics is to demonstrate that even in something's worst case, it can be useful. So I don't know, we could take like a toolkit, for example, right? Like if you're ever going to do any handiwork or whatnot, typically if you need to like hammer a nail and you bring a chainsaw, it's going to be useless, right? So the point I make about something like Black Hole Gauntlet is, if such, I don't know, like a Swiss Army knife existed for those kinds of tools, this would kind of be it, where even on its worst case scenario, like maybe some assassins and ADCs, it is still incredibly useful because of how much effective HP it can give you, because of the things I mentioned about Arena and easy access like stats, and the fact that it does damage, right? It scales off of like your maximum health. Like it just keeps going, right? It's like you're always going to get health no matter who you are, unless you're Pike, I suppose, right? When you get it, assuming most prismatics you get on round 3 or anytime you get it at all, it's going to just be like extra chunkiness so that you get like crazy tempo. Yeah, it's just way too good. To explain that point, and I know I'm going really long, I promise the other ones I won't go too long. If you're Jinx and you're like, I don't know, 1500 1700 HP around round 3 in Arena, and you just randomly jack up to 2500, like that's so much more time that you have to actually do what you need, even though you're doing way less damage than what you would be able to do had you gotten, I don't know, like hamstring or something. Like in a lot of cases, that actually fundamentally changes your matchup. Because, for example, if a mage were to hit you with one rotation and that puts you on kill threat, if you were to get Black Hole Gauntlet, and now they have to hit you twice with 2 rotations, 2 full rotations, that means that like the time it took for them to get you to lethal, even though you don't get them to lethal as quickly because you don't have a damage item, it's all about percent HP. So if they do, let's say 50% of your HP and you do 40% of their HP in the same amount of time, ignoring burst windows or whatnot, just straight DPS, you can notice that in that matchup, they're going to beat you because they simply have more DPS than you. They're going to do the rest of your 50% before you get that 60% done. But if you change it so that they do 45% of your HP and you do maybe not 40%, but maybe you do 37%, so you have less damage and they have less damage, but it's a lower percentage, you can see how like some matchups will actually change. Now when we factor in burst windows and stuff like that, they might actually do you might actually do way less damage than you normally would, but so would they, and that could allow for opportunities like dodging, maybe avoiding skill shots, which is kind of funny, right? Kind of intuitive, Black Hole. So ADCs have guaranteed damage with auto attacks, and so they're fundamentally different in how they damage others, while other champions might rely on ability cast and maybe combo systems to actually get their shit. So the more HP you have on an ADC, right, it's just, unlike in Summoner's Rift where you don't get like crazy augments and shit that change gameplay or warp gameplay in a super big way. Like, okay, I've gone too far. This could be a video by itself, like this whole concept of DPS windows and like effective HP, right? Like literally, if you ever pop an anvil on an ADC at all, almost always take armor MR, almost always, and just tech like a single health thing, because you can't miss auto attacks for the most part. You're just going to be at a huge advantage. You have range and you have unmissable damage. Okay, like boom. Okay, let's move on. Let's fucking move on. Cloak of Starry Night. So this is significantly better than its counterpart. I'm getting a little bit ahead here. The Shield of Molten Stone, because, put it simply, not everyone auto attacks, but everyone at some point is going to use an ability. And based on your lobby, I mean, unless it's fucking 7 teams of 2 ADCs each, you're going to want Cloak of Starry Night over Shield of Molten Stone. So if you ever see them together, if it's an even split between AD and AP threats, remember, AD champions, if they have AD abilities, you know, you're going to get usage out of this. So, but especially true if you're against mages. Dude, if you go against a mage, this item alone is just disgusting. Easily techable as like an A tier. I'm just going to say it like that. Okay. Even if the, so we're going to do the worst case, right? Even if the entire lobby is full AD, when you get that selection, if you see Cloak of Starry Night, Shield of Molten Stone, maybe Warmugs, yeah, maybe you don't want to take Cloak of Starry Night, but the point is that you totally could, and it actually would be useful, despite the fact that it's only MR. Still health as well, right? You probably want the Shield of Molten Stone over the Cloak of Starry Night, but the point is, even in that worst case, you can clearly see it's very fucking good. Conversely, Shield of Molten Stone, right? Same selection. Cloak of Starry Night, Shield of Molten Stone, Warmugs. If you're against 14 mages, yeah, you probably don't want Shield of Molten Stone. Maybe you're against like a TF, maybe a Gwen, and maybe you block an auto or two. You know, complete waste. So you can compare the differences, right? So yeah, the taking less damage from just straight up non-basic attack sources, right? So abilities, if I'm reading that right, right, and it's basically always function like this. Very good. Crown of the Shadowed Queen. Now, in general, prismatics, I'm going to measure up to other prismatics, right? So Crown of the Shadowed Queen, yes, it's okay. It's like all right, but because of how Arena works, where you can take random ambient damage, anyone can poke you, anyone can like actively take this away. It forces you to essentially play into it, which is to go forward utilizing the shield portion, or like the less damage portion, in a way that actually makes sense, right? You'd have to demonstrate that the 40% damage reduction was actually useful in those 3 seconds. Oftentimes what happens is, even if they hit you, they could just hit you once, don't use an ability, and then hit you after the thing is done. And it's just kind of like, you know, it's the fact that the timer restarts upon taking damage that makes it really bad. One way for them to buff this is to make it not reset. Or maybe even, you know, reset like positively, as in like if you hit someone with abilities, it goes from 30 seconds to 25 to 20, right? Kind of like Puppeteer, but no good. Also, Apex Inventor, guys. Apex Inventor is the highest capstone for any of these active things possible. If anyone makes the fucking argument, and people are doing this, if anyone makes the argument that because you can get Apex Inventor and it makes it really strong, I'm gonna lose my mind, because like you're right. If you have Black Hole Gauntlet with Apex Inventor, it's just going to be infinitely better than most things you can ever get in this game. But we're not going to evaluate it off of its best cases. Not necessarily, okay? Like, I will acknowledge that you can get Apex and pushes it harder, and like, yeah, dude, like, of course. But please do not fall into the trap of thinking down the line of givens, where you go like, oh, given that you have this, and given that you have that, and given that you have that, this is really good. It's like, okay, in the worst case, where you have nothing at all, just this alone, right? What do you have? And like, the lobby is completely this, blah, blah, blah. Like you can see the difference in thinking. And the reason why I think that you should be thinking in terms of worst case first is because you can go from there and you can establish, like, not everything is vertical, of course. There's some like sideways situations, of course, right? But things tend to scale really well when you start from like the bottom there, and you're like, oh, okay, so like, so for example, 14 mages, worst case, if you have shield moment, and then 13 mages, or maybe half the lobby, maybe only about 6 mages and 8 AD champions. Okay, so then you can kind of you can do that vertical thinking, right? So please do not fall into the same pitfalls that you did with the tier list, if you did. Okay, Cruelty. Cruelty can only be gotten, I believe, by anyone with CC. There are actually rules for these things. As far as I can tell, I don't think I've ever rolled Cruelty on anyone that doesn't have the ability to activate it. And that makes sense. That falls in line with the augments. Given that, if you see Cruelty, you are by definition someone who can activate it. The problem is you might not have a way to actually use it often enough to justify it or scale it. So you would essentially have to be a champion that has AP and health and a lot of CC accessibility that isn't already killing them to begin with. Because if it's already killing them to begin with, it's kind of a win more situation. And typically the way I'll take Cruelty is literally like, I am like very tanky and I need some source of damage, and I'm scaling that off my HP. I don't find too many mages to be useful with Cruelty. For example, if you're like an Orianna, right? You're a mage, you can CC, but you have it on your ultimate. Okay, maybe someone like Sylas. Sylas can CC with E, and that's quite often, but do you want Cruelty? Yeah, honestly, you might want to, simply because of the way Sylas plays, right? You want the armor, you want the MR, you're a melee champion, you get in deep, you get in their face, you're going to make use of those stats, and you might even be building HP as well. Pretty good. But then you can see how there's so many cases where you can't actually use it actively, because the armor MR, it's good in general. The health scaling, if you play towards it, you might be trolling your build. It's basically sorry. It's basically like you're kind of split. Like, a lot of the users are split, where either they have a preponderance of CC, and they want to be building HP to scale it, and so it's like pretty decent, or you're like a super AP champion and you barely have enough CC to kind of justify it. Either way, still very good, very, 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 very powerful. Overall, I can't really think of like too many worst cases where you wouldn't just want to take it for the stats anyway. You know what I mean? Just because it gives you armor and MR, especially if you're a mage, you don't access those thingies too easily all the time. Mages in particular, rather. I guess unless you're doing Zhonya's and Banshees, but no, you don't have access to like Terminus Jack Show builds, kind of like ADCs or fighters. Yeah, no. Unfortunately, mages kind of get a little gimped on the defensive side, a tiny bit gimped, or at least in my experience. They have like Rite of Ruin, but that's a tough one. That's really tough. Very conditional. Not that you're thinking Cruelty is conditional. I'm talking about the armor MR. It's not conditional. It literally is just armor MR. Boom. You don't have to do anything. You just have it. So very tentative. I'd have to think about this one more. I will admit this one. I'm not too sold on my own analysis, but it's just first impression. And it's my own gameplay, my own experience, because I actually use this reasoning when I'm in the middle of games. I'm like, oh, dude, it's not actually that good, huh? Right? So arguably better on tanks than it is mages. HP is just the better scaler in this case, right? but still useful on the mage. I'm gonna put it at like a B. Okay, Crown of Shadow Queen. I forgot to rate this. This one would be like a C. C for Crown. Okay, Darksteel Talons. So you can get this on anyone. I've gotten on mages and shit before, but I'm not even kidding you. Back when this had like 10 movement speed, this thing I would just take anyway. If you ignore the passive, which makes you do more damage based off of your what's it called, your armor, just look at the stats to begin with. Attack speed is a very good stat in Arena, regardless of who you're playing with, simply because of the existence of plants. Okay, I shit you not. If you have more attack speed than your opponent and you get 2 plant hits and they get 1 as a result, that attack speed stat essentially translates to more cooldown, more HP, more shield, I guess, from the thing. Like, and it also denies the opponent. So any plant hit that you get is a plant hit that the opponent doesn't get. In those scenarios where you actually, I mean, regardless of what you're doing, it literally just means that you get 1, they get -1. Right? So you think about the HP swing as a result of having attack speed. It doesn't necessarily mean that every time you go into the game, you're going to have that scenario of beating them by 1 and so you get 2 and they get 1. But it means that in the cases where that happens, you can see how even on a mage, even on an enchanter, this was really fucking good. And if you look at the entire lobby and you see like 8, 9, 10 AD champions, maybe some fighters that are going to get in your face, dude, 55 armor, doesn't matter who you are, you're going to love 55 armor. You're going to fucking love it, okay? And then movement speed, back when it was 10%, even just the fact that it could be 1% and it'd still be fine, right? Movement speed is the fucking most OP stat in the game. You get in and out of situations, you can go eat a plant faster, you can get into ring faster, you can avoid certain things, blah blah blah. It's just simply the best. That's why I play Phase Rush on Jarvan. Okay, that's why like I've always advocated movement speed, ability haste, like utility is just too fucking good. Okay, I would stack so many stats just for movement speed alone, right? But oftentimes you get a better option. If you don't have them though, Darksteel Talons, I want you to think of it not as an on-hit item. I want you to think of it as just a stat stick. You can sell it later, that's fine. But worst case, you don't want to roll in round 3, you have shit options, just take Darksteel Talons. Totally fine, right? And no matter who you are, you can definitely make use of the armor scaling on hit. It's just totally fine. Okay. Now, Decapitator is interesting. So Adaptive Force Prismatics tend to be way better than their counterparts, which is just like AD or AP, simply because it's Adaptive Force. I don't think I have to convince anyone of that. Typically, if you have an Adaptive Force item, it's going to be lower stats than their counterparts as a trade-off. But in the case of Decapitator, and like honestly a couple of these, like that is just not true at all, right? Like you could say like some of the AP statistics, right? 85 here, Dead Orb 90, right? Everfrost 100, Flesheater, like yeah, typically they'll be like lower, but they're not like so low that the Adaptive Force is like a bane. It's just a complete benefit. Okay, like it's so fucking good, the fact that they give you a good amount. So attack speed, good stat, we've established this. Movement speed, very good stat, we established this. And then Adaptive Force. And then, unfortunately, you might think like on hit armor is not that universal. And funnily enough, your ultimate and stacking it this much, it's not actually as no, you know what, it is probably more universal than on hit, even though everyone can auto attack. It's more like this. Okay, let's say out of 172 champions, all of them on hit, and therefore you get bare minimum value out of Darksteel Talons. The way I'd evaluate Decapitator is like, okay, I can clearly see how like, let's just go with half, right? Let's go with like 86 champions don't really care about their ultimate haste, or don't really care about stacking it up, or might not even be able to access the stack up of Decapitator. But then the other 86 absolutely can, and it's easy and blah blah blah. I'm not even going to try to like argue numbers here. I'm just going to say that like even in cases where you're not a champion that uses their ultimate that often, the fact that over the course of the round, assuming you don't like get one shot or one shot them, that you can build up to that super win con of having a lower cooldown ultimate, only requiring 3 hits of plant instead of 4 or 5. I know it's percentage, but like lower flat number, even if it's the same percentage, it's a lower number at the end of 3 hit plant hits, right? But playing for that win con or having that win con available to you is disgustingly OP, even if it's like a utility ultimate. Even if Very fucking OP to have 120% ultimate, sorry, 80% ultimate haste. What's the number there? That's just underneath 50%. Something like that. 66 is 33, whatever. And the fact that you can auto attack to get the stacks, like, you can't really get the stacks that easily. And I'd argue that if you get to 40 stacks for free, someone's doing something wrong on the enemy team, or you're already winning. Either way, I think just in general, my first pass, like, thinking about this, because I take it on so many people as well, and I play towards WinCon, I'm like, yeah, it's good. But I'm also very skewed because I play against lower rated players by default, because I have to FF a lot. I don't know. I'd have to test this more, but my hunch is that if you had to choose between Darksteel, Talons, Decapitator, very, very similar items, just take Decapitator. Just way better. Unless you're against like a ton of 80, in which case, yeah, take the defensive stat, of course. Okay. Demon King's Crown, super S tier. Sorry, let me put these in tiers. Darksteel, let's say it's a B. Decapitator, it's a B or A. Okay? Because it can cap way higher. Darksteel Talon, unless you're like Malphite or Braum or something, like, you might not be capping that super, super high. But it's very good on EC. Demon King's Crown, automatically S tier, way too good. Anything that increases your stats by a percentage, you can just generally go with very powerful. I know there are conditions. I know in the worst case you lose over and over and over again. And it's like, what, 16%, 17%? It's not that good, sure. But this is one of those cases where the average usage of it, which I would argue is going to be a case where you're in a winning position, or if you're not in a winning position, you can at least kind of like skill check it. Like you're just not taking this if you're Soraka Milio on round 3, right? But even if you did, you can still kind of like play it out a little bit, 23, 20, 21, 18, like, win a couple, lose a couple. Even then, it's one of the only things that does what it does, which is why it's so important. So for example, if I gave you like 10 tools, 9 of them did basically the same thing, but one of them did something different. Even if that different usage wasn't maybe that powerful, maybe it's not as common, the fact that it is unique from the other tools gives it value to begin with. Okay, so one sec. I hope you understand that. So in any video game, if I'm given 10 tools and 9 of them are similar and one of them is unique, I will look to that one thing. I will try to evaluate objectively what it does, and then I will evaluate how valuable is it by virtue of it being different than the others, as in like it gives a different effect, and how often I can play into those sorts of things. I always use these kind of like criteria. There's a ton more, of course. And I'm just gonna tell you right now, like, Demon King's Crown, fucking Omega S tier, okay? Omega S tier. I don't even think it's a win more augment. It's just too fucking good. It caps out way too high. It's one of the super capstones, if not the super capstone, because it starts at 26 compared to a Dragonheart, which would at maximum start at like 24 with 6. I guess 28 with Elder Soul, sure. But how are you getting that early enough for it to matter? Demon King, you can get it on round 3. Demonic Embrace. So very similar, although it's a little bit more conditional. The 700 health alone, to me, is actually one of the most powerful stats. It's the fact that on champions that you're going to want to take this on, right, AP champions, it's the same actually, same thing as like Black Hole actually. Like starting off with 700. Think of this as like the Black Hole for mages. Like starting off with an extra 700 is like fucking OP. But then the actual best thing is the fact that you get movement speed, dude. What the fuck? Movement speed. When you lose enough HP and you just fucking hit the NOS, dude, this makes a huge difference for the champions that want it. Orianna, Syndra, a lot of mobile control mages, you get hit to half and you need to fucking book it. If you don't have flash, the ability to hit Flee, because Flee makes you faster when you're running away from people, in tandem with Demonic, you're gone, dude. You basically have a get out of jail free card. Most people are attuned to things like dashes or flashes because they're instant impulse abilities, while movement speed, even though technically speaking they might cover more distance over a longer period of time, unless, you know, of course, unless you're measuring literally the fucking 0.5 seconds in which you are going from not flashing to flashing, right? Let's say over the course of 2 seconds, 3 seconds, you could put more distance than dashes and flashes with just movement speed alone. People won't recognize that. Of course, it does matter, the time window, because in that time window, your opponent could hit you more, right? There's a difference between traversing 500 over 0.1 and traversing 500 over 1, right? Of course. But my point is, it accommodates a lot more scenarios. It obviously doesn't accommodate the scenario in which they can still hit you while you're running, but because it lets you put it. Okay, I'm just gonna put it simply: the difference between Ghost and Flash. You can clearly see the value. Flash is of course better in the base game mode than Ghost, but in this game, you think about it as in like, anytime I'm in danger, I have Ghost active. Just think of it that way, and you can kind of see like, oh, what? Oh, that's kind of good actually. What the fuck? You know? Yeah. It's pretty conditional, sure, but even then, even a little bit of movement speed, right? Especially into a melee, the melee has to be within range. If you clear that range earlier from running away or flashing, you're good. If it's a ranged champion, yeah. But if it's a ranged champion that uses abilities and you can dodge as a result, dude, I fucking love that. I love playing against Veigards, dude. Because if they ulti me and I'm on like 1% HP and I activate this, I'm like, dude, I have like 550 movement speed. You're not gonna hit me ever. I'm gonna outplay the fuck out of you, right? ADCs, yeah, you're kind of, you know, oh, unlucky. Okay, Det Orb. Det Orb is one of the highest caps for any sort of mage because it just does so much fucking damage. So much fucking damage. More than you would think, but less than you expect at times, because the visual indicator for the Det Orb, the little star, unfortunately that thing I don't think is accurate at all. I think it's a flat amount. So for example, like the visual is like, it scales with like, let's say like 0 to 2000 damage, but and this is just speculation, but my intuition tells me that the Detonation Orb would function something like Mel's, where if I'm about to kill the guy, I want that Det Orb thing to like show a very solid star. When in reality, it shows a solid star when you've reached a certain flat damage threshold. So sometimes you think you killed someone with that orb, but they still have like, let's say 5,000 HP, even though 5,000. Sorry, let's say they have like 3,000 HP and they're missing 4,000, so they have 7k total. It looks like it'll kill them, but it just only does like 1,500. I'm like, oh, what the fuck? But still, it's still very, very powerful. It's actually one of the only sources of flat magic pen on you know, these sorts of things, Starakov. And it's also just like stats you want in general for mages. Okay, you can't really use it as any other class. You can kind of use that as a tank because tanks peripherally have AP ratios. But I am almost certain that unless you have an AP ratio, you cannot roll Detonation Orb or any of the AP mythics. So for example, Ashe could roll Detonation Orb, but a champion like I think like Vayne cannot, Draven cannot, Callista cannot. I just have never seen them. I'd have to look at the stats actually, because on the one hand, it could be that people are just not clicking it when it shows up, and on the other hand, it could be that it doesn't exist in the pool. The easiest way to check is just go through any stat sites and just see if it's been chosen at all. If it has not been chosen, then you can't guarantee that it's not available. But if it has been chosen, then you can guarantee that it has been available. Anyone do? Computer science students must love. Actually, I don't think they like min tables and min terms, right? Like, no, never mind. Diamond Tip Spear. So anyone that can get this, I believe melees can't, dude. I haven't seen this shit, but very powerful for anyone that is going to roll this for the most part, like marksmen and mages. I seriously don't think you can roll on melees, dude. I should know this. I should actually know this. I am almost certain. I'm not dollar bill here, but this one's pretty good. But I will say low-key bait. Low-key bait. But also, let me do the tier list. I totally forgot. Let me try to remember from that one. Demonic Embrace, solid A tier. Detonation Orb, solid A tier. Maybe even S. Okay, they're all good for when you find uses for them. Diamond Tip Spear, I just like because it's cheesy with the extra 75 bonus on ADs. But I swear to fucking god, it's bugged. The 40% ability damage extra based on distance, if it actually worked, would be bonkers insane. Bonkers, like absolute S tier, because it's percentage. It's a fucking percentage, right? So I don't think it actually works. Yeah, I'm gonna move on. Divine Sunderer, Omega fucking bait. Omega bait. Unfortunately, in this mode, if you're ever getting multiple spell blades, you're either just killing them to begin with whatever your ability you're doing, or if you're not, it's hardly making a difference on the enemy's HP bar, and being worthwhile compared to some of the other options that you can get. It doesn't really sustain that much. One sec, I got messaged. It doesn't, especially because it's base AD, dude. It's just trash. This might be the first D tier. D for Divine. Oh, but S for Dragonheart. Dragonheart, S tier. 100%. especially if you roll Ocean Soul. Right? On round 3? God fucking... Effective health... Okay, we'll do the effective health conversation right now. Every point of HP that you have, let's say 1,000, is increased by a percentage based off of how much damage reduction you have. Like, let's say your armor MR. And you don't get diminishing returns. I actually touched on this. You don't technically get diminishing returns. It's more like when you have a certain amount of HP relative to the MR and armor that you have, let's just call them resists. When you have a certain amount of HP relative to the amount of resist you have, it is actually more worth it to buy one stat or the other. There's like a fucking graph of this, and it's like 100 for every 1,000 or something. Like at 2,000 HP, you want like is it 200 armor? I forgot, man. There's some shit out there. But basically, like there are a lot of things that factor into effective HP. So health, obviously, resist, obviously, and then things like damage resist abilities, which means that pockets of your gameplay will have, you will take less damage. Galio, Irelia. Let's say your opponent has a burst window where initially their damage looks like this. It does not. Okay, let me just do one of these. Tab in, by the way. You need to see this visually. So let's say their damage window or line looks like this. Nothing for the most part. And then big, and then nothing, and then big again. So a mage. Or ADCs, which is just something, and then maybe a big spike with crit here and there, or maybe they have like an execute ability, right? So it's just kind of like this, and then boom, right? When you have an ability that has damage reduction, you can essentially match when you use that with their peaks. So like, let's say Callista, if you're a fucking scripter and somehow you're able to do this, Callista throws like 1,000,000 autos, does the same amount of damage for the most part, does not scale throughout the fight, and then all of a sudden she hits rend and it spikes like this. If you hit your damage reduction ability like Aurelia can, and such that, you know, you're not using it here, but right when it spikes, you use it, their damage just stays the same essentially, or maybe even lower, right? Because you can lower it by 100% if you have enough AP. Okay, you can tab out now. I'm gonna close the cam, or put it back. You can see how so many things factor into how much damage you're going to take. Another one that sounds a little bit silly is like movement speed. Movement speed helps with your effective HP because you could arguably dodge a lot of things. So like if I used to coach people like this. One sec. I used to coach people and tell them, listen, you're a tank. You're walking into people because you think, because of your tank stats, you can tank them. And you're correct. You are correct at layer 1. As in, technically speaking, with 3,000 HP, 250 resist on either side, you can actually take 4 or 5 people's abilities as punishment and maybe survive, right? I'm talking about Summoner's Rift. But I used to coach them like this. I told them, but imagine a world where you're not only a 3,000 HP tank, 250 resist, but you also dodge abilities. You could argue that your effective HP went from what would normally be something like 6,000 or whatever with that stat line to maybe like 10,000. As in, technically speaking, objectively speaking, you could look at the actual like abilities being thrown in auto attacks, count them all up, and you can count upwards of a 10,000, 11,000 damage that you soaked up, either by directly taking it because it's point and click, or dodging it because you could dodge it. And so when you see the game through this lens of like, oh shit, just because I'm a tank doesn't mean that I shouldn't dodge. It's not might, although most things are might. I will say it with hyperbole. It is actually fucking better to always look to dodge abilities, provided that it makes sense to do so. Okay, I think that covers my ass. As in, if you have to get in front of a teammate to block damage for them because it's something that hits first target, let's say a Gen W hits first target, Gen Ultimate hits first target, okay, yes, basically unavoidable given the context because it's better for you to take that damage than it is for your teammate to take that damage. Ideally, both of you dodge in sync, but if, let's say, they're stunned and you get in front of it, then that's a scenario where you could easily establish that, yeah, you should be using your HP bar. But in so many cases, you don't actually want to be using your HP bar. Why? Good question. Because in the cases where you have to use your HP bar, you would prefer to have it be a higher number. If I gave you 2000 HP to work with, and you could dodge, and everything that came at you did 500 damage, and only half of them you could dodge, and the other half you couldn't dodge, you should be dodging everything that you can, such that you can save your HP for the things that you can't, right? So, if you're a shitter, you take 4 hits, 500 damage each, there goes all 2000 your HP. If you're a good player and you dodge half the abilities, let's say 2 of them, you dodge 1000 damage and you take 1000 damage from the unavoidables, now you can tank 2 extra, right? So I know this might be intuitive to some, but hearing it out loud might be very helpful for most of you guys because the way that relates to Arena is pretty simple. Even on tank champions, I will make it even fucking harder for most players to actually kill me by just dodging their shit anyway. This is where size comes into play and like speed. Like if you're a tank and you're tiny, actually pretty fucking good, right? Unless you need to block for your teammate. So, please do not be condescending to other people and go like, oh, I already know this. Recognize that in my audience, there might actually be a lot of players that are somewhat new to the game. Maybe even if they're not new to the game, they haven't thought this deeply about the game. I'm not saying I'm like the most intelligent. I'm just very excited to share some of the knowledge that I've accrued over the course of like, 11, 12 years. And so I don't mean to be condescending or patronizing to anyone. Please, if you take it that way, I'm just going to assume you're acting in bad faith. None of this is meant to make me fucking sound way smarter than you guys. I'm just sharing my fucking knowledge, okay? That's why you clicked on this video. Okay, that aside, let's go into Duskblade. Dragonheart is obviously S tier. Duskblade, I think this one's bugged. If it actually did what it said, which is the extra damage based on missing health, you can see that it's still very fucking bad. Very fucking bad regardless. And the condition of having to score a takedown in order to activate its passive, which is actually really cool because there's another item that we're going to talk about that has the same sort of thing, but is a case of where it's good. This sort of thing, you get untargetability, which isn't actually something that you want all the times, or all the time, because you can demonstrate that the only cases in which it's going to be useful, the only cases to begin with is when you kill someone, but the only case where it's going to be useful afterwards is if you kill someone in front of their teammate, in front being defined as their, as in they can hit you. So not necessarily literally, proximity wise in front of you, just as long as you're in the range. So for example, I kill a melee character and a ranged character is 500 units away, but they can still hit me. I am still in front, or in quotes, right? I am in front of their teammate. In that case, yes, I go untargetable for 1.5, and I can't be hit. The other case would be I kill someone, maybe I'm not in front of their teammate, and I'm afflicted by something. Okay, I can dodge a tick of damage, I can dodge a dive bomber, a clown college. Yeah, there are some cases like that. It's, dots are somewhat prevalent, sure, but to begin with, this is not a good passive. The damage doesn't seem to work, and it's missing health, unfortunately. The stat line is good for assassins and anyone that might want to take it, kind of. But like just look at the difference between this mythic or prismatic and like what's it called, Detonation Orb, right? They're almost the same stat line for what their classes want, the lethality versus the magic pen. And it's just so shit. It's so shit, dude. I rarely take this ever. If I'm forced to, absolutely forced to, yeah, okay. You're gonna like Jinx with W. Okay, Elisa's Miracle. Now this is interesting. I think the biggest part that carries this item is the fact that you get 50 armor, 50 MR. This is very good for a tank item. It is akin to most tank items, and it has the haste on top. So you can think of something like Jackshow, which caps way higher in terms of just raw resistances, but then it gives you this additional sort of passive of like extra heal and shield power when you lose HP. Now, the reason why this is actually good, even though it's conditional, is because in cases where you've lost that kind of HP, you actually do want more heal and shield power, because chances are you're going to die. And so healing, if you get 700 healing instead of 500, that makes a huge difference because you've already, it's a case of givens, right? Given that you have access to this passive, you must be in a situation where you've lost your health. And then, so therefore, any amount of healing that you get as a result is going to be effective. It's just going to be actually worthwhile, right? There's some conditions, like, again, the Duskblade, which is fucking D tier, trash. Where, sorry, I'm coughing a lot. Okay, long pause, Lamau. There are cases where when you reach the condition, it doesn't actually make sense, all the time. But this one definitely makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. Even for shield cases, right, where it's like, oh, you could actually eke out like a little bit of extra time because your 600 shield went to like 800, you know what I mean, or more, right? So pretty good. Empyrean Promise. This is fucking Omega S tier. No matter who you are, no matter your champion, okay, even in its worst cases, I think you can absolutely make use of it. Why? Because it's a dash. Because it is a fucking dash. It can get kind of interrupted. You can get hit during it. You can also cast during it. But even if you don't use mana regen, heal and shield power, ability power, haste alone, and the fact that you go to your teammate, oh my god, the amount of use cases for this. I mean, obviously you want to take it on people that can use the stat, but it's I've always actually, I talked about this a lot. You want defensives in this game. In arena, defensives are very powerful. Going to your teammate and playing for res, or taking the res and then going eventually, like after taking a gate or something, or maybe getting to your teammate early and just getting a basic shield, or dodging someone's ability because you Empyreaned when you normally don't have your dash up or don't have a dash to begin with. So powerful. And it's especially good if you can use literally any of the stats here, right? If you're any AP champion at all, you don't have to be an enchanter. You really don't. It's just that good. Okay? I would even take this on ADCs. If I were an ADC and I got, I don't know, Divine Sunderer, Empyrean Promise, and let's say even Darksteel Talons, I'd be like, oh shit, Darksteel's good, but like I'm looking at the enemy team, I don't know, I see like an Amumu, a Malphite, these guys I want to get on me. I can bait one time with Empyrean. If they're smart, they bait it out of me, sure. But even then, I just build a single Empyrean, and then I build all my damage, and from then on, the rest of the game, anytime I'm in danger, I can hit this button, I can coordinate. Now, I will acknowledge that I have a little bit of a bias, because I play with duos only. If I'm not playing with a duo, I probably won't rate this highly. Because I need my duo to be in a position where I need to be able to calm to them. I need to have them not on top of my fucking head, right? And I need to be able to tell them I'm going to do it as well. So, I will land this at like a decent B tier. On average. But me personally, fucking S tier. Eliza's is a decent B tier, by the way. I totally lied when I said I'd do the tier list. I get too caught up in the explanation. Sorry. Let's lead with the... no, let's not lead with tier. That charges the exploitation. But I kind of did that already, huh? Okay, Empyrean Promise. A solid B tier on average. I'm gonna acknowledge my bias. B for bias, hey? But S tier otherwise, if you're me. if you're people from my Discord. Everfrost. Okay, the stat line on this one, it got buffed like 4 times, something like that. Too strong, way too strong. 85% AP. I don't think you can roll this on everyone. I've seen this on ADCs, Empyrean. I shit you not. I could be wrong, but even if you could roll Everfrost on everyone, it's very difficult with prismatics versus augments to judge off of the entire pool. That's why sometimes I'll pick and choose if I'm going to evaluate entire pool versus not. Yes, you would want to keep it consistent, but the thing is, like, it's essentially just a root for anyone that doesn't have any of these stats. I mean, ability, haste, health, mana, pretty universal. AP, not universal. Root, universal, sure. So if I were to evaluate it, it would kind of be disingenuous in this case because it's purely, it's purely a mage / peripherally tank, prismatic. Does that make sense? So let me say that again. Let me qualify that. Basically, anytime you're clicking this, you're a mage. You can take it on someone who doesn't use these stats, and it would by default be kind of useful because of the root. But it would actually be way fucking worse compared to something like Empyrean. And so if I let that drag down the average tier, I feel like that's disingenuous compared to looking at something like, I don't know, Diamond Tip Spear, right? Or Elisa's, because you can roll this on mages, enchanters. I think you can even roll on ADCs. And, oh my god, I'm just gonna fucking check this in a sec. One sec. I need to have established this early, so that is totally my bad. Lol Analytics. Let's just look at Jinx as our standard ADC. Can you actually roll this shit? Let's take a look. Item 1. Who the fuck built Mikhail's? Okay. Can you even roll this shit? I don't think you can roll this shit. Wait, I'm looking at ranked. What the fuck? Oops. Prismatic items. Wait, you absolutely can. So you okay, so you can definitely go AP Mythics on these champions. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the way it works is like you can roll every prismatic on everyone, even like Cruelty, right? I was talking about that earlier, so I might have to change my decision, but that's why I kind of said like is wait, no, apparently you can't. Apparently you cannot. I do not see Cruelty here, which is interesting because I see Force of Entropy here. Although they kind of do different things, even though they share a common goal. Wait, that's interesting. You can't. I mean, let's look like even deeper. I'm gonna take a look at maybe Ashe. Ashe should be an example of can roll Cruelty because it's a very clear CC ability, right? Very fucking clear. Prismatic items. Yeah. You can roll Cruelty. Okay, so Draven would be a good example where it's a CC thing, but it's not AP, but it is not an ultimate either. Okay, Draven. Draven apparently has not gotten Cruelty. Okay, so this is the exact case I was talking about. Just because we don't see it doesn't mean that you can't actually take it. It could just mean that no one is opting to choose it to begin with, right? It could be the case that people see the Cruelty, but somehow 2 people chose Detonation Orb and no people have chosen Cruelty. Obviously, they're going to be different games, right? But yeah, stats is both a fun and very polarizing topic to begin with, because people are so fucking condescending when it comes to stats. I'm going to try and avoid those pitfalls. Let's just go with everyone can get Everfrost. But again, it would be disingenuous to include people who are basically never going to click it in my evaluation of the tier. So for example, like Duskblade, it's still D tier just by itself with all the people that want to click it, but it's especially fucking D tier if we include mages, rolling this shit. I know you can roll it as like Mundo, for example, right? Like, he's not a mage, but I'm just saying, like, if you include everyone possible that can get it, it's even fucking worse. Everyone possible. So this is why worst case is great, because if you are the class that wants to use the item and you still don't want to use it, it could be said that anyone outside of that class, anyone that is not that class, definitely does not want to use it. Arguments against that, pretty fucking simple. Any unique effects that, can be tapped into by someone independent of their class. But you'll make the mistake of thinking, okay, so let me explain that actually. If every single mage does not want to use Duskblade of Draktharr, but for some reason there's a mage champion that when they go untargetable, they gain like 500% damage increase, then you could argue that Duskblade, despite the fact that it's not good on its main class, and then we use the same logic that I use of therefore it's even worse on classes they don't want to. You can see how it works against that because the unique effect has a unique interaction with someone in a different class. But what I'm saying is it's important to pay attention to the fact that that's a unique interaction and not necessarily a class-based interaction. Okay, so generally speaking, if you are not of the class that definitely doesn't want to use the thing, you most definitely don't want to use the thing. Unless you have a unique interaction. Okay, so done. Everfrost, S tier for mages, fucking S tier. Overall, sure, B tier. Just some health, just some mana, ability haste. You can tie that into mana immune maybe and do some cool things. Adapt, or sorry, escapade is fucking like if you go escapade with this, holy shit. Like, yeah. Flesheater, amazing, absolutely amazing. Adaptive Force. It has the bonus 20 ability haste. If you didn't know, it actually has this. It doesn't show in game, but it definitely has this. It just shows you the health and the Adaptive Force, but it's a tooltip bug that they haven't fixed forever. It's one of the only sources of easy access armor and magic resist shred, and it's not like the hardest to stack at all, especially because any damage whatsoever. That means dot, that means auto attacks, that means anything, right? Most things are conditional, like blood letters is like abilities and passives, I think. Black Cleaver is like physical damage, which is still pretty broad, but not as broad as doing any damage. Especially because this is not ambiguous. It's or not discriminatory, as in like it's literally armor and MR, and it helps your teammate too. It's like probably one of the best sources of shred, other than like erosion in this game, but erosion is an augment. Very good. So, one sec. So, Flesheater, the passive. When you do that takedown, it actually tangibly changes how the game is played because there are cases where you could actually end up dying. And unlike Duskblade of Draktharr, where Duskblade kind of requires you to be able to be hit, health is universal. Just getting health to begin with, especially because it's the opponent's health, even if it were your health, I would make the case that it being based on your opponent's health is better, even though that removes some of the agency of your gameplay. Think of it this way. If you're the squishiest class possible, maybe some enchanters and ADCs, the worst case scenario is you're playing against other ADCs and enchanters, and therefore the 18% of their health is pretty much going to be the same as 18% of your health, unless you're a based Black Hole Gauntlet ADC enjoyer like me. You know, obviously, without the agency, it doesn't feel as good because you're like, oh, I'd rather build tanky and then play into this, but it's actually totally fine. 18% of their health, my point is, it's generally going to at least be yours. Because even in the worst case, you're playing like a squishy character, they're going to be the same, right? In most cases where someone, you know, you're playing against multiple different classes, even like mages get more HP, tanks especially, right? If you play against any tank, you can change your entire gameplay around, let's go finish that tank, even though we're going to trade almost all our HP, kill them, and then both of us just heal for 18% of that tank's HP. They have 7,000 HP, you heal for what? What is that? 1,260? Something like that? Like, what the fuck? That's is my math right? Yeah, no, the 1256, right? So like, oh sorry, 1260. Yeah, so like that's actually fucking OP. Okay, so the hack the meat passive, like the shred to begin with, very good. The stat line, very good. Health, ability haste. Funnily enough, in a case where you take it by nature, you're probably going to be higher than the average squishy because you have 500. I just realized that, so that kind of works against my argument. But the same thing still stands. Like, even in that kind of worst case, I think it's totally fine. If anything, you'd want that more. Where instead of having a conditional 18% HP, so let me work that through. Like you're basically, it's actually good to not roll. They have 2,000 HP. You have 2,000 HP. My argument still stands of like 18% is the same thing for both numbers. But even though if you get Flesheater, you go to 2,500 HP and they have 2,000 HP, 18% of your 2,500 is going to be higher than, you know, 80% of 2K. But the value of getting that 500 to begin with is higher than the value of you being equal. Dude, I don't know how to say that, but I hope you understand what I mean. It's like, it doesn't really matter. It basically doesn't really matter, even if you are a higher HP than them to begin with, because the stat, just a flat stat alone is fucking worthwhile. Okay. But it also, you combo that with the fact that it can cap out way higher, especially against other classes like fighters, tanks, blah, 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 for the most part. Okay, anyways, Force of Entropy, very nice. Very nice for pretty much anyone that can roll it. Okay, critical strike chance, it connects to everything. Also, Flesheater is totally an S tier. Force of Entropy connects to everything that has to do with crit. Jewel Gauntlet, Vuln, tanky champions, that want the Vuln Sunfire. AP champions that want survivability, Rite of Ruin, critical, blah blah blah, ability haste, like everything. All these stats are fucking amazing, dude. I love seeing Force of Entry. It's also very funny, but we're not going to evaluate based on funny. The CC duration in particular makes it so that you can get some combos to become true combos. Now, what's a true combo? A true combo is essentially when you do one thing that guarantees the next, and basically a bunch of guaranteed hits in a row. And so you can turn, for example, like a set E into a true combo, as in like even without hitting two people on either side, you can E someone, and if it crits them, it pulls them, and then it has an additional set in particular, okay, has an additional quality with his E where it pulls them and then it knocks them up. So it pulls them, knocks them up, and you're guaranteed your W punch as a result. They hit you, they hit you, they hit you, you E them, Force of Entropies them, guaranteed W, true combo, okay? Now, there are a lot of characters that end up getting a true combo, and if not, they at the very least get extra duration on their CC. That is just like too strong. Too fucking strong. You can turn even the slightest knockups into actually way stronger, like Ribbon Q, right? Knocking them up a little bit more. Maybe you get that auto for free, right? There's so many cases, and even, again, in the worst case where you can't exactly use this, you can't exactly use the Immobilize too easily. Again, 900 health. Holy shit, that's so fucking good. 30 haste, it's one of the highest in the game. Critical strike chance, that opens up so many different lines. So many lines with just crit alone, okay? So easily S tier, no matter who you're playing. I can't really find a case where it just wouldn't be fucking useful, okay? It just, compared to some of the others, S tier for sure. Fulmination, okay. For some reason, it dodged all the nerfs for movement speed. It's 15% movement speed. It is the highest in the game. Out of every single item you could possibly get, it is the highest percentage. The problem is, AD stat is not the most universal. You can take it on mages because it connects to Runecarver alone. And I honestly think because it makes Runecarver especially fucking powerful, although you don't need it, it kind of carries it. Carries it to like a good A, maybe standard B. But the fact that it's a little bit of a bait, one sec. It's a tiny bit of a bait because in order to maximize it, you have to swap targets. You have to demonstrate that you're going to get into a lot of situations where it makes sense to do so. And it actually doesn't really make sense to do so. Unless you have something like Rapid Fire Cannon, and Rapid Fire Cannon is a shit item because round 3, round 4, Fulmination, Rapid Fire, that's not actually that strong. It's cool, it's fun, it's not actually that strong. Yeah, so that alone, it's like a lot of push and pull factors, right? It's like it's good because it connects to Runecarver. It's good because it has movement speed 15%. It's kind of bad because it has AD and it's like 10% current health. It's not that strong. Yeah, it resets 45% attack speed. Ooh, that's good. You know, like it's right. It's tough. It's tough to justify in every single situation. If you already have Runecarver, given that you have Runecarver, Fulmination S tier, right? But even if you have Runecarver, there might be other better options that enable you to hit Runecarver more often. Because you're surviving longer or you have different stats. But it's like I'm torn. This one I'm actually very torn. The movement speed alone is so fucking good, dude. We'll go with A. We'll go with A, right? Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit, Rapid Fire Cannon, it's also energized, right? So you gain the extra range from Rapid Fire, and when you hit someone with Fulmination, you reset your energize back to 100, so you keep the range. So you can shoot one guy, shoot another guy, shoot one guy, shoot another guy, and you alternate A, B, A, B, A, B, and then you'll keep your range the entire time. It's very good. Okay, Galeforce. Galeforce is fucking amazing. Highly underrated. It's got the crit, right? Number 1, it's got the crit connection point. Number 2, attack speed and movement speed, these stats we've already gone over. Attack damage, don't really care about. But it's got an AP ratio. So this thing is lying to you, by the way. It doesn't only have an AD ratio. It actually does have an AP ratio. Although minuscule, that alone makes it totally fine to take on AP champions, even if you don't have something like Adapt, okay? If you absolutely have to choose something, the fact that it's a dash alone, and the dash can go over walls, okay? Like, don't even think about Apex Invented to begin with. Like, just by its base, like, this thing, it's a fucking dash, dude. You can use it to dodge things. So good. If you have no better choice, if you're a mage and you got offered, I don't know, Eliza's Miracle, let's say even Demonic Embrace and Galeforce, and you look at the lobby, right? You look at the lobby and you go, oh shit, I don't think I can't play towards the win con of running away with the health of Demonic Embrace and the speed. I don't give a shit about Eliza's Miracle. I don't really have healing shield power or something. I need this dash. I'm going to tech the dash now. because now I can dodge a Malphite without flash. I can dodge maybe even like a Riven like ERQ onto me, and I normally wouldn't be able to, and I can get out of jail free, essentially for free, right? Obviously, it's the opportunity cost of not taking something like a Demonic Embrace, but highly underrated in my opinion. I think it's a very easy high A tier. Could almost be S, especially if you're a champion that uses it, especially if you end up connecting with it. Gambler's Blade, I don't have to explain this. All the fucking stats are amazing. Ability haste amazing. Highest attack speed in the game. Movement speed so fucking good. And it's money. It's money. Even on champions that don't have dots, even on champions that can't really use it, the game, the entire arena game is based around 250 gold. That is the bare minimum threshold to be useful, okay? Or for gold to be useful. You can get 249, you can get 249.9, but until you get 250, you are not useful. The reason why Gambler's Blade is so fucking good is because at its worst case, obviously, like, you know, not getting anything, you have good stats, but for the most part, the only win con is to win, right? Obviously, it doesn't help you win as hard as maybe some of the other things, but when you do, because it's so powerful, when you do actually win and you get at least 250, you've essentially got an extra kill, and that can push your tempo one round ahead. Give you an example, okay? If you get a kill every single round from 1 through 5 and you random anviled on 4, you can buy 2 anvils on 6. Okay, you will get exactly 4,000 gold. But with Gambler's Blade, if you win one round and you get 250 on round 3 or round 4, but you don't get it on round 5, you've pushed yourself 1 gold threshold forward, as in 1 kill forward. And now you can still access that thing. Now you don't have to sell your starter item, right? Even better, you get 1,000 gold over the course of 2-3 rounds. Dude, you've killed 4 extra people. That can mean an extra prismatic. That can mean an extra juice, maybe, if you need to juice in a scenario. Like, it's too fucking good. Money is too fucking good, okay? Simple. And it's even better when you have any source of dot. Any source of that shit at all, right? Stat line, good. Passive, game-changing. Completely game-changing. This is an example of one of those tools, the 1 out of 10 tools, where it is unique. It is the only thing that does what it does, okay? And that thing is actually very useful. Arguably the most. Gargoyle Stoneplate, very fucking OP just for the movement speed alone. It doesn't give you health. So if you ever get Gargoyle Stoneplate on a tank, right, remember the effective health discussion I talked about. When you get 65 armor, 65 MR, you want health. Your second item, go more health. Maybe you're a tank, and hopefully you're a tank taking this, but even if you're not, get some HP. Get some HP in there. Get like, I don't know, an Atmas or something if you have any connection point at all. If you've got like tank it or leave it, and you go Gargoyle and you go Atmas round 4, you're fucking unkillable, dude. You're just gonna be unkillable. Okay, good. So Gambler's Blade, Omega S tier. Gargoyle Stoneplate, a good A tier. Very good. Shit, honestly, anyone can use Gargoyle Stoneplate. The problem is his bonus health. A. You kind of have to. Yeah, we'll keep it at A. Okay, and also Apex Lamau. And Apex for Gamblers. And Apex for Galeforce Lamau, but ignore that shit, okay? Goredrinker. Trash. Especially because they nerfed it with like the cast time. Like the stats are kind of okay, and yeah, Omnivamp is nice. Getting the extra Omnivamp, it was objectively buffed, but unfortunately for the cooldown and the actual effect, no good. I'm sorry, it's that trash. Okay, sorry, it's C. Don't talk to me about like, oh, but one time I hit Goredrinker and I healed and it saved me the game. Yeah, okay, dude. All right, like you just didn't listen to me at all. you didn't understand like the rest compared to what you can get. I'm sorry, Goredrinker. It's not like flaming hot trash, but it's pretty trash. Especially because the class that wants to use this is arguably trash as well. Hamstringer. Oh my fucking god, you know this one, dude. Ooh, dude. Ooh. I swear to god you can't roll this on mages, man. I've had so many Vol mage games. I don't know how many that like I just can't find Hamstringer. Like I just fucking can't. But in general, because it gives you the super capstone with crit, it's the only thing that actually does anything in tandem with those crit augments for the most part, other than like Sword of Divine. Very good. A solid A. Okay? Anytime you get any crit, vulnerability, or jeweled, or you have any ability that crits to begin with, get this one, okay? It was nerfed. It used to be disgustingly broken, but it's still very powerful. Good A. Very high A. Hemomancer's Helm, honestly, to me, this is kind of a bait, dude. Even in cases where you get like the Prismatic Anvil for Omnivamp, I swear to fucking god, you don't actually heal that much because it's only 10%. It's only, you have to be close to them and it's 10%. So for the ones I want to use it, like, I don't know, like a Riven or something, dude, I don't know. Like, if you're doing enough damage to heal a ton, because it's 10% of the damage that you're doing, you're probably fucking killing them anyway. Like, every single time I've played this thing, the numbers are way too low. Incredibly fucking low. It is one of the only sources of Omnivamp for, like, anyone really, if you can't get it in your prismatic items, but like, shit, you might as well just build a Gunblade. Like, if you're going to do it. And Gunblade is guaranteed, and it's cheaper. Like, I think about if I want Omnivamp, which is pretty much its unique tool, right? I just can't justify taking this. I'm gonna put it at a C. Okay. Yeah. You want to remember that you can actually make use of it with the Prismatic Anvil. I guess that's my only tip. Okay, Hexbolt. The 500 health makes it really nice. It's one of the high, or the high. I think it's the highest. Yeah, but it's 70%. Yeah, 75% attack speed. Unfortunately, very conditional to get maximum usage out of it. But it's good stats to begin with. Attack speed and health. If you have fucking absolutely nothing else, like, sure. But unfortunately, because of how difficult it actually is to make this useful, because on hits aren't actually that crazy in this game, barring champion, like, you can't reliably, like, unless you're playing what I'm saying is, unless you're playing a champion, or sorry, unless your teammate is playing a champion that has a lot of on hits, like, you're actually not gonna get that crazy value. So we'll go with like B tier because it's funny. Yeah, you can tell this tier list is like so fucking loose for the most part when I don't give a shit. But if I care to explain, like, I'm gonna be accurate. I'm tired. Whatever. It's been an hour. But thank you for watching. Innervating Lockit. Now this one, oh, it's tough because, like, it depends on how your matchups go. If anyone rushes you down, you could argue that it kind of helps you because you're in distance. But, like, I'm just gonna put it at like a solid A, because when you do activate it, it's a really high capstone. It is actually like almost unlosable if you get to the point where you activate it and you haven't died. If you're not like 1 HP and you have this stat line, like, holy fuck, it's too good. It's actually way too good. Kinkou Jitte, if it weren't bugged, it would be way higher. It would it would honestly be a fucking S tier, because you see this, right? You see how many ways to actually scale it, and it actually does matter. Especially if you're like a tank, dude. Doing percent HP true damage is so powerful, man. Especially when they have no sustain too. This would just be like a straight S tier. But because of its bug where sometimes it just doesn't activate, like, it's actually very difficult, and it's conditional to begin with circle, I don't know. It's like at least A tier. I take it pretty often, when I have no better choice, and it's just like, yeah, nice, good. Lightning Rod, easily, no matter who you are, movement speed, armor, health, like, everything about this item is fucking nice. Super scalable. It connects really hard. Unfortunately, no true shot barrage, but, like, even without automated augments, Lightning Rod's passive alone, holy fuck, broken, dude. Holy fuck, broken. Like, it's really good into melees, especially into the in the end zone, because it's percent HP damage. It's not true damage, sure, but it's percent HP damage, and it's a shield, and its base stats are crazy. Omega S tier. Omega S tier. Anyone can tech it. Mirage Blade, Giga Conditional. Adaptive Force makes it a little bit better. Unfortunately, it's like a glorified Navori. It's kind of like a win more. It's cool when you have Galeforce with it, because it lowers the cooldown of Galeforce. But what are the odds of getting both of them and having it be useful and being a champion that actually wants to use them? Lamau, it's like a good C tier. You can tech it. Moonfire Spellblade, it's better than Mystic Punch now for sure, bro. For fucking sure. Underneath 7-second cooldown or something like that. Yeah, it's the fact that it's AP that makes it a little bit tough to justify some champions, but Tenacity is one of the only stats that you can't easily get. So the fact that it has it is pretty unique. Although Tenacity arguably, this is this is like a 30-minute conversation, but put it simply, Tenacity is not actually that useful for the times that you think you want it. So in cases where you want it, where you want to get out of CC, the only way to actually justify it is if you can demonstrate that you actually had a gameplay difference, a tangible gameplay difference as a result of getting out of the CC earlier. So, for example, 1 second CC versus 0.7. If you can demonstrate that in the 0.3 seconds that you gained because you had Tenacity, you actually got out of a situation, or maybe turned the situation on its head, then yes, you can justify tenacity. But there, one sec. But there are a lot of situations, unlike Summoner's Rift, where if you're getting CC for really long to the point where you want tenacity, and they're chaining it over and over, you actually want to be CC'd for longer. That way you can hit the combo break earlier. Because combo break is if you've been CC'd for 5 seconds out of the past 7 seconds. So there is realistically a world where, because you have tenacity, you're actually not making a tangible gameplay difference with the time that you've gained, and you're getting CC'd anyway, and you're going to get CC'd longer because it'll take way longer to activate combo break, or you don't activate combo break at all. That is to say, tenacity tends to only be useful if you stack a fuck ton of it and you get out of the CC so early that you can avoid the infinite chain. Skilled Sniper is a really good example of this. Skilled Sniper, regardless of how early you're coming out of it, from like a Jhin route, who's if he's continuously applying, or maybe Morgana, or maybe Xerath, or maybe Lux, it makes no difference that you come out of the 1.75 second stun at 1.3 or 1.4, because they're just going to stun you anyway. But it's going to stun you for less if they end up like changing the sequence. Like, it just doesn't do anything for you. Cases where it is actually useful is maybe like they don't have Skilled Sniper, or they don't have 2 champions that are repeatedly CCing you, or it's like knockups and shit, right? Oh, sorry, knockups don't get affected. And like you actually do come out of it and then you make use of it. So tenacity is a funky stat. It can work against you sometimes, and it can really work for you sometimes. You have to gauge moment to moment. It's actually the same argument that I use for Summoner's Rift against Mercury Shards, where it's like there are some situations where if I get CC'd, I'm most likely fucked anyway, because I'm going to get hit by more CC, so I'd much rather build a defensive stat. But people, don't even get me started on that. So Moonfire's Blade, I would put it at a reliable A for its stat line, even if you're an AD champion, just because attack speed very good. The auto attack reset is actually very interesting for some champions. It could be game changing, right? Even like an Orianna. And then the fact that you reduce your cooldowns, that's a high capstone for a lot of different builds. Night Harvester. Let's just go with a trash. It's a fucking stat stick. It's a C or it's a B. No one cares. You can use it with Apex, sure. I promise you 15% AP ratio. Trash. Don't bother. Let's skip ahead. Prowler's Claw is interesting because for the champions I want to use it, it actually lets you kind of shred people, but it's so dangerous because assassins are very squishy, and you're melee with people, you're probably dead in a lot of cases. They're just really weak. And if you're like a fighter, I could definitely see it for a gap close because it's a buffer gap close, right? You cast it on someone and it can't be cancelled unless you get displaced, I believe. But even then, I haven't really seen that scenario happen. But even in the case that it can be displaced out of you, still good to at least have it there. The enemy team would have to like be very skillful. I think it's fine. I think it's like the stat stick variant of like Night Harvester, but at least it has like a conditional dash, so you can use it in a lot of cases to go through someone and dodge. Yeah, mages just don't want to take the shit. Yeah, no, it's like pretty reliably C or B tier. Same thing as like Night Harvester. Puppeteer, okay. This is actually particularly good simply because ADCs in general are good, and so you can use it on anyone, and it's got 40 fucking ability haste, alright? 40 ability haste regardless of who you're playing. I sometimes even just take it because of that. And the fact that like the Berserk got buffed so that when you hit someone, it's like 15 seconds, okay? Some people think you have to get the 4 hits right away. You don't. You can hit someone, wait 10 seconds, hit them again. They still have the same stacks. You can threaten. If you're like a mage, you can threaten to Berserk anytime. You can hit 3 stacks and never auto again. And anytime they come close, you can threaten it. You don't even have to do it. So you have a lot of agency in that sense. Okay? Good A tier. Overall, good A tier. A lot of people can use it. Pyromancer's Cloak. Oh, dude, here we go, dude. Now we're looking at some big boys. What the fuck? I can barely... Okay, the stat line is like 15. Can I? There we go. 15 ability haste, 400, and the adaptive. The adaptive makes it so good. Basically, when you hit someone, you hit them for a base amount of damage with the spark. This used to be way better. One sec. This used to be like so fucking strong. It was like up to 450, but it's still really good to begin with because it's a 5-second cooldown. Anytime you do anything to someone, you just burn them. And it's honestly a little bit of a bait when it comes to like Leandry's Blackfire. Like, Blackfire and Malignance are kind of shit items, right? In this mode, but it's just really good by default. It just doesn't scale as hard as you might think it does. Okay, so really important to understand one of the parts of the passive, which is that when you stand in the blaze, you heal. It's one of the only sources of free sustain that you'll ever get out of any item at all, especially because it's so easy to do, where you hit someone and then boom, you have it. Even if you're not going to be able to stand in it forever, because let's say they're melee and they're on you, even walking through it and having it be a zone where they take damage, you heal, and you get bonus movement speed, it's such a flip of like, they lose HP, you gain HP, and you can run like, that kind of utility is like unheard of, bro. Like, it's actually unheard of. It's way too good. Easily S tier. Easily. Radiant Virtue, highly conditional, decent stats, pretty okay for tank mythic, B tier. Reality Fracture, as good as it can be, it's still like a B tier. Just because like, you have to hit a lot of things together, whether it's Apex or Minimancer or holding them still for it, right? It spawns on you, so some melees, for example, that have gap close, you'll hit them, it'll spawn one grub on you, and then it'll spawn the rest on top of your target when you get on them. But a lot of champions that do that don't want the AP. And so it's kind of a waste of stat. Like, feels a little bad. You know, maybe you want on Diana, dude. Silas. But like, ooh, feels kind of bad. But the grubs actually do up to like 800, 900 damage. If the enemy just doesn't see them, it doesn't care, Reality Fracture is going to rack up a lot. But it honestly scales with lobby level. We'll go with B, right? B for Reality Fracture. Right, you know the B meme with the red? Reaper's Toll, honestly, because it's very unique in that it does like the percentage true damage, and it's pretty much the only thing that you can itemize against tanks that reliably fucks them over, and it's adaptive. Like, you could even do this on mages and shit, right? Like, it's totally fine because you can auto attack. Like, man, it's too strong. Even after nerfs, too strong. S plus tier, bro. Fucking so good. Regicide, oh, don't even get, like, we talk about conditional, hey, holy shit. I'm sorry, I'm not even gonna go over this one. It's a D tier. It's really a D tier. Fucking garbage. Reverberation, it's a very difficult item to understand. I don't think a lot of people know Reverberation. One sec. So this item, you have to stack 4 times. Anytime you CC someone, you get 1 stack. At 4 stacks, anytime you CC people from then on, as long as you maintain it, it applies on hits 3 times. Now, the basic on hit damage, the 10 plus 2% of your bonus health, it's not actually that crazy. Really, what it was a delivery mechanism for like your ability, your champion's like on hit mechanisms. Whether it's like, I don't know, a Jax or Braum, you know, like, it's not that good. Everyone can pretty much roll it. The armor stat, MR stat, attack speed stat, yeah, they're good enough, but it, you know, the passive is essentially just wasted. Even the HP, it's just wasted, okay, on so many characters. So I think it's totally fine to take it for stats alone, even if you can't activate it. That's why it's like kind of a B tier, but it's honestly around C tier because of how conditional it is. Okay, Sanguine Gift. This one's actually very nice. Even so damage is not like discriminatory. It can be AD champion, AP champion, whatever. And so if you happen to get Sanguine Gift somehow on an AD champion, even that, like, you're not going to do as much damage, so you kind of work against your passive, but it's one of the only sources of healing. It's very good for those that want it, like any sort of enchanter, mage sort of build. Arguably better on mages, because if you have any shred of healing shield power at all, and also affects itself, very nice. So it's a pretty reliable B tier, pretty good for healing. Shield of Molten Stone, I kind of already addressed this one. I think it's kind of bugged. I actually think it's kind of bugged, where sometimes it just doesn't work. But even if it were to work, compared to its counterparts, not as crazy. Still good though. Still a very high capstone against a lot of AD champions. 100 armor, holy shit! Like, you're basically solved for the most part. Good A tier, pretty good A tier, but below where Cloak is starting, that would be. Sword of Divine, Adaptive Force, really nice. 50% crit chance, automatically finishes a lot of builds. Because the way it works is, with anyone that wants crit, having to build crit, if it's not like absolute best in slot, feels really bad. So like, having to build Rite of Ruin on a lot of mages, even though it's AP, even though it's haste and blah blah, it isn't actually as good as you would think. So if you ever get Jeweled Gauntlet and you randomly rolled Sword of Divine, you're done. You finished. You basically already have all your crit. You go up to like 80, 85%, something like that, because of how Jeweled works. Even just Vault alone, 25% with the 50% here with Sword of Divine, going to 75%. You don't have to build anything. You can kind of like go random stat invulns and try to piece together the rest of the 25%, right? You can just kind of get that. You don't even have to build. You're essentially saving 2 slots for 1. Right, one slot equals two, because you would have to build, I don't know, like Lord Doms and IE, and then the 25-25. Obviously, yes, you're getting the effects of Lord Doms and IE, but what's even better is you can still build those things on top of it, because now your overcap crit actually makes a difference. That's how good it is. So you see the line of logic there, where it's like you don't have to build those things if you don't want to, and now you can access other things. But even if you need to or want to, regardless of what you do, whatever choice you make, build more crit, don't build more crit, you're kind of solved. Like, you either get more value or get more value, right? So good. Easily S tier for pretty much anyone. No, actually, no, not pretty much anyone. I would bump it down to A because, unfortunately, just damage alone and crit strike, yeah, in my experience, actually, it's not as... Obviously, for the ones that want it, it's very good. But there are so many situations where I cannot justify just getting 80 AP and crit. You kind of do have to connect. But it does set up for that. Okay, yeah. This is one of those cases where I'll make that kind of exception of like, ooh, yeah, you know, it's definitely A tier. Talisman of Ascension, it's basically you ran... let's say... Talisman of Ascension works like this. Let's say I give you X amount of stats to get. Let's say it's 5, and it goes up by 5 every time. So 5, 10, 15, 20, every time I roll it. And then that amount of stats goes into any of the stats available here. It's just a random amount assigned. So let's say like 1 point of AD equals 10 AD, while 1 point of AP equals 20 AP. So that's why it might look like you're getting less stats overall, but in general, every time you roll it, it gains more and more stats. It's just the pool gets spread out differently every time, okay? So people need to understand that. Because of the randomness nature, or the random nature of Talisman, it's actually kind of difficult to evaluate it, but we have to think of it this way. Even when you get it in the late game, you still at least have 3 possible rolls. The current one, the next one, and the next one. And unless you're literally on your last life, which is worst case, you're generally going to get multiple chances to roll something decent. And the fact that it's one of the only sources of super huge flat movement speed alone, and pen, some of the hardest stats to get, right? Movement speed and pen, and even crit in cases, I think it already pushes it way high. Like, at least an A tier. Okay. Turbo Chem Tank, it's the only thing that does what it does with the crowd control, but the problem is it's actually very difficult to justify with just the stats alone. You don't get any utility stats. You get HP and damage. You don't get like movement speed, you don't get attack speed, you don't get haste. It's so conditional in the lobby. If there are situations where you actually need to take this, let's say you have a Yume on you and there's Mordekaiser, or let's say they have true combos that can CC you, you have to basically justify the decision by doing this. In the 3 seconds that you have total crowd control immunity, you have to demonstrate that you can do something that tangibly changes your gameplay. So it's kind of like the same thing as tenacity, right? It's super tenacity, but if your champion can't do anything off that, then you've essentially wasted a slot. Because you could, it's the opportunity cost. You could basically take another item that might prevent you from getting in a situation where you might need the Turbo Chem Tank, or maybe play that situation out better, as in you can tank it out harder, or you can hit them harder in return, or something like that, right? It's there's so many givens, man. That's why this game is so difficult to talk about. There's so many like holes that you can poke at. Like, if I were to watch my own video and poke holes, like, first of all, I probably fucking wouldn't, because I hear enough and I recognize where I'm coming from, but that's because I'm me, right? But whatever, that aside, Pilot's Edge, it's actually very, very good. Let's just go with A tier. It's kind of difficult to activate on the AP side because getting 60 AD is difficult, but stat invulns exist, thankfully enough. And Gunblade exists. If you are playing standard and you just go Twilight's Edge into Gunblade on most characters, you're going to get value. And the bug alone makes it very strong. The bug where you can sell it and undo to change which side it is, or like roll it again. Yeah. Without that bug, I don't know. It's like a B tier, A tier, something like that. Like an in-between. Let's go with B. Okay? Kind of forces you. Twin Mask, S tier, 100%. I'm sorry. Even in the cases where your teammate doesn't get it, right? The threat of it in just 15%, especially if your teammate lines up with it, there are way too many cases where it's too fucking good compared to cases where it's not good at all. It's just way too fucking strong. It's definitely not as strong as Dragonheart or Demon Kings by default, but it can cap like a motherfucker, dude. It can cap like that alone, too powerful. I think that pushes it way high. Warmogs, you can take it on anyone as long as you complete the HP. Like, actually, they changed the threshold. Wait, no, hold on. It's not 2K. This is fake. In arena, it's 1450. You can get that through anvils. You can get that through getting a Guardian's Horn, even if you're ADC. The problem is you don't have resist, so it's like a pretty reliable B tier at least. And I would say A when you get the active going, and you are a matchup that can play for the active, as in you can play in and out, and you can guarantee that you get a moment to heal back up. You essentially get infinite value, and also Circle of Death is really funny with it. But that's not how we're gonna argue it. You know, we're just gonna look at it. In pretty much the worst case, we're like, at least you get 1,000. No way you're not getting this if you don't intend to at least activate it. If you do that, then yeah, obviously it's gonna be shit, right? But that's more on you than it is on anyone else. Okay, Rune Carver, best for last, man. This thing, everyone, doesn't your mom, your grand, everyone can tech Rune Carver. You just, it's the only thing that has infinite. It's the only thing. It just infinitely stacks. Yes, obviously it's not like functionally infinite because the round has to end, but it's infinite in the sense that, like, if you play towards it, your opponent, their power level stays the same pretty much. You are just going up and up and up, and if you get to like 10 stacks, like, holy shit, you don't even have to have AD or AP. You just do damage, man. Like, you can be a fucking AD champion and you're good. Like, yeah, no, it's too strong. It is the absolute best item in the game. It is S plus 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 tier. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. I don't want to have to turn off comments. I really enjoyed the reception that I got last time. It seems like a lot of you guys that actually stick around to listen to me. You guys are critical thinkers. Thank you so much for not giving me trouble. Very fucking annoying, because a lot of people who are not capable of critically thinking are also the people that think that I don't like people because they disagree with me. I don't dislike people because they disagree with me. I dislike people because they disagree with me with no actual reasons behind what they're saying. Okay, if you disagree with me and tact is another thing. Okay, if you think I'm talking about you personally, I am talking about you personally. But the average normal human being, I would assume, hears what I said just now and realizes, oh, that's not me. Like, he's not insulting me. It's not. He's just protecting himself. He's got a spine. He wants to defend against those that are acting in bad faith, because that's what I'm doing. Okay, and if you're tired of that, I'm sorry if you're tired of that. Don't bring it up to me. It's not my fucking problem. It really isn't. Don't, seriously, you make it worse if you call out like, oh, you always do this. Okay, then what are you doing? You're basically continuing the cycle. Shut the fuck up. Okay, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I hope you learn. I hope you enjoyed your commute or took a nice shit. You should probably wipe by now. Get off the toilet or finish your work, or maybe you're going to sleep. Hangshu me. Good night. And whenever you're watching this, I hope you enjoyed. And let me know if you want more stuff like this.